coming southbound, cars can get off and get onto 400 northbound or get onto the Beaufort Spring connector and go toward Cheshire Bridge. And that may be in the works as we speak. So that won't be very difficult from that direction to get people off I-85. Now, in terms of all the traffic that continues to come down, I'm going to assume eventually, except for local traffic, they're going to divert everybody onto the perimeter. But this is all happening at the moment. We don't have any official information, but it seems clear that I-85 is going to be impassable in this area for quite some time.
Most definitely. You know, it's good to see here in these live pictures from Sky Fox 5, there does appear to be some progress being made in fighting this fire. As you mentioned, Russ, the flames are beginning to tamp down just a bit, and there was traffic on both sides of the smoke. Previously, it appears that the roadways have been cleared, which is a lot better to see because we didn't know how large this fire was going to grow, and there was a bit of concern for some of the cars that were parked nearby. Here we're getting a wider perspective, so it does appear that there are still some cars in the roadway. There's an effort underway to turn these vehicles around and to get them off the road, but we had initially thought that perhaps this fire would have to burn itself out. Perhaps there's some type of accelerant, and it appears, from our vantage point at least, that process is happening, that perhaps whatever it is that's fueling this blaze is starting to burn through, so to speak, and that perhaps firefighters will be able to get more of a handle on the situation. Yeah,
I think you're right. I think that it looks to me like they're putting water on the roadway next to the fire, perhaps trying to cool that down so whatever damage is being done doesn't spread in the direction toward us, which is southbound. The cars that we just looked at, they're now to our left, that were coming north, they're going to be the last to get off the roadway because they're going to have to, in an organized way, turn everybody around and head them back in the opposite direction. Never seen anything like this in my more than 20 years covering the news in Atlanta, and this is really going to be a complicated situation, not only in the short term, but what do you do when you close down a major interstate in such a busy area?
Yeah, if you take a look at this traffic cam right here, you can actually see the left side of this traffic is where vehicles are turning around and they're being redirected off of the highway. This process all taking place very slowly right now, but Russ, as you mentioned, this is something that is going to be a difficult situation for some time to come, as one, you get these vehicles off the road. Two, firefighters work to make sure that the flames are extinguished, which still could be quite a lengthy process. And then three, you've got to get the engineers in there to assess the condition of this roadway, a major thoroughfare through Midtown and downtown Buckhead, Atlanta. So this is going. I think it's fair to say that this road will not be passable for at least the next 12 to 24 hours.
At least. For those of you who are just coming home from work and tuning in and looking at this fire and thinking, oh my goodness, we are looking at I-85 north and southbound. A fire still rages underneath the northbound lanes primarily, but also under the southbound lanes. This has been going on for at least a half an hour. And firefighters are on the scene trying to get water onto it, seemingly having little effect as far as the water, but it does seem to be burning itself out somewhat. Fox 5's Tom Haynes is gathering new information in the newsroom and joins us now with that. Tom?
Russ and Sinead, this started burning about a half an hour ago. Our helicopter was over downtown Atlanta on another story, and it was flying back up north, and we were really the first on the scene here to see the massive amounts of black smoke coming out from underneath I-85. Again, this is happening in the area of the Beaufort Highway connector, right where Piedmont Road intersects I-85, where the MARTA rail yard is in the area, and then what happened after that was the massive amount of flames that followed the smoke, and the flames excuse me just a minute. Plastic conduit, we understand, on fire underneath I-85 is what got this thing going. Plastic conduit. And we just heard from an engineer who called into the station. I was talking about the concrete support beams underneath the highway. That is not what structural engineers perhaps, according to this engineer, might worry about when they go underneath the highway to examine the structural integrity, it would be the steel beams that support I-85. And so they would be looking in terms of that melting because of the intensity of the fire that had been burning, and it has been burning for 30 minutes. I mean, nonstop. We're coming back and forth between the efforts to put out the fire and what we're getting here in the social media center. These are some shots that were taken from the ground. I'm getting the perspective from Piedmont Road, and you can see firefighters there right almost underneath I-85. If you give me a moment to just get my bearings here, but you can see the flames here burning. Again, plastic conduit is what we're hearing from officials right now, what ignited and fueled this fire. But again, fire rescue crews there on the ground. You could see firefighters trying to best determine how to attack this blaze, to get it under control. As we said, not only to protect the integrity of I-85, but to keep motorists who, for quite some time when this thing first broke out, were actually passing right by the fire as it came up in between the north and the southbound lanes of I-85 when we were still trying to figure out exactly what was going on. This is a shot from the Fox 5 tower camera looking at this area, and the smoke is still coming out from that area, which can be seen now for dozens and dozens of miles. Again, coming out from this large fire underneath I-85. The word we're hearing from an engineer who we just spoke to here in the Fox 5 newsroom, and for investigators, once they get the flames under control, is the structural integrity of the steel beams, which are underneath I-85, which support the freeway.
Tom, can you hear us? Can you hear us, Tom?
Just a moment, guys. I'm getting word that could you say that again, guys?
Yeah, part of
I-85 has collapsed.
Yeah, right.
That is a dramatic scene, Russ and Sine.
It really is. You talked about the steel beams and the length of time that this fire has been burning, and now we're looking at, who knows, weeks, months to get this road back open. And this is a major thoroughfare, not only for us here in Metro Atlanta, but a major artery for the country. So it makes sense what you say. If it was plastic conduit under the roadway, plastic is made out of petroleum. That's what fueled this. It looked like a gasoline fire, and essentially it was, and still is. And now we said this was a major catastrophe unfolding, and you're looking at the evidence of that now. Hopefully, my goodness, all the firefighters who we saw underneath fighting the fire are safe. That's the first thing that comes to mind as they continue to battle this from underneath.
Certainly. Unbelievable images right here. You can see where an entire chunk of I-85 has collapsed. The fire still continuing to burn a bit off as you look on the right side of where that collapse took place. Perhaps the section of roadway that fell is smothering some of the flames that were beneath it. But the fight to fight this fire continues. I want to talk to you about some of the possible alternates which we may need to use for some time now. If you're coming from I-85 southbound inside the perimeter, Claremont Road northbound to Peachtree Road, Claremont Road southbound to Highway 78 is encouraged. From I-85 southbound outside the perimeter, I-285 southbound to Highway 78 or I-20 westbound. And from the downtown connector northbound, Peachtree Street to Peachtree Road, I-20 eastbound to Moreland Avenue, I-20 eastbound to 285 on the east wall. But certainly you want to avoid traveling through the Buckhead Midtown area here. 85, there's not much left of it there. No,
it'll be closed for quite some time. It's going to be the perimeter and I-20 to get around this mess for who knows how many days, weeks, or perhaps even months to come. It's an unbelievable sight, as you say, and yet it seemed inevitable as this fire burned with so much intensity for so long. We have our answer, if you're just joining us now, that there was plastic conduit, and perhaps it was on those spools that we saw underneath. We saw just sort of the skeleton frame of those spools in the middle of the fire, that intense orange fire underneath this part of the road that has now collapsed. And it's fair to assume that the southbound side has also been damaged. We don't know the extent to which it's been compromised. No evidence at this point that it's getting ready to fall. But the flames were very intense under that side as well, Sine.
Absolutely. Just incredible pictures. You can still see at the bottom of your screen here where firefighters are pointing water at the fire. It appears that they're keeping their distance from the flames, which makes perfect sense because you can only imagine how hot it is closer there to that freeway. And it's been over a half hour now. It does appear that some progress is being made in beginning to extinguish or contain these flames. We've got live pictures here from Skyfox 5. As you can see, the signal has been weak at times. These are some images from earlier today when this fire was raging with all of its might underneath I-85. You could see this is the actual collapse here that you're looking at. If you saw that video just now, that was where a portion of I-85 actually fell down onto the ground beneath it. Tom Hayes is in our newsroom right now continuing to collect some new information. Tom, what are you finding out?
So I'm looking at these stunning live images with you right now of the collapse of I-85 and the flames still burning in that area. I have Fox 5's Jacqueline Schultz live with me on the phone right now. You're
pull up about a block now. If you know the area, it's right in front of where the Goodwill is and where Tower Beer, Wine, and Spirits is where they put people. They were yelling at people. There were a lot of people on the streets trying to take pictures, take video, try to see what was going on. I started to see flames start shooting out from under the bridge. That's where they told me the fire came from. And then they kept on yelling at people, back up, the smoke is toxic, back up. Right now, I'm on the corner of Piedmont and Lakeshore Drive, and that's where there's a lot of crowds right now. There's a lot of officers. There are a number of fire trucks that have been racing in over the past 10 to 15 minutes. I will tell you, for anyone trying to get down here to this area, Piedmont is completely blocked off north of here. I saw a number of cars just trying to jump over the middle section to try to just make a U-turn to spin around. A wall of gray smoke all over Buckhead.
Jacqueline, we're looking at the images live from Skyfox 5 right now, a scene that none of us could have ever imagined, the collapse of the interstate as a result of this fire. It looks like most of the flames are out at this point, and our primary concern is not only with the safety of the motorist on the interstate, but of course the firefighters who are battling this fire. Can you tell us, our instant concern goes to anybody who might have been underneath the interstate trying to battle it from underneath where the fire was originating, and the safety of firefighters that were nearby where the highway collapsed?
Right now, I honestly can't see the point where the highway collapsed. I'm a little behind that. I do see the part that is still standing. This is the first time, by the way, now that the smoke is finally clearing, I do finally can see the other side of the interstate under Piedmont. That's the first time I can see it since arriving here, which has been about 20 minutes, half an hour ago. And I can't tell. It looks like everyone's okay. But right now you see firefighters just checking their engines right now. They're checking the hoses. Everyone looks to be okay. But at this point, I have not been told what exactly happened. All I am being told at this point is whatever it is originated from under the bridge. But it looks like firefighters are kind of, I don't want to say standing down, but they're more relaxed than they were about 20 minutes ago when I saw flames shooting out from under the bridge.
Jacqueline, what have you been able to hear, if anything, incidentally from firefighters as they've been around you and as you've been close to the scene? Have you been able to glean any information just in the passing of officials that are in the area where you are?
Well, they did yell out at one point, back up, the smoke is toxic, as there is that giant wall of smoke coming over Buckhead. I am not close enough to the firefighters. I know that the battalion chief is up there at the scene trying to figure out what happened. I haven't been able to speak to him personally at this point. But I can tell that people were just concerned, or police officers were concerned for just the public safety, and kept on asking them to keep on backing up.
All right, we're in video now of what, Jacqueline, this fire looked like earlier, and it was raging. I mean, it was certifiably out of control. With the highway now, Jacqueline, collapsed, I mean, the thought goes to now, and Russ talked about it earlier, that the weeks and perhaps months that it's going to take to rebuild this portion of the interstate, and the implications of drivers trying to get in and out of the city on this part of I-85. It's just...
I'm taking a look at 85 right now, and it looks completely blackened. Honestly, as the smoke's clearing, I see what was the bridge, the I-85 bridge over Piedmont, and it's black. It's hard to describe it in any other way than that. It's charred right now.
I'm curious.
I did forget to mention, Tom, a little earlier, I kept on hearing what sounded like mini explosions, like a boom. And I heard that a few times. I don't know if my camera picked it up, but I heard what sounded like a few booms going off. And not sure exactly what that is at this point.
Well, we understood that it was plastic conduit that had ignited and fueled this fire. And you mentioned a second ago you were kind of choking back on the smoke there. Is it an electrical type smoke that you smell coming from that fire?
That sounds pretty much about right. I would say that's about right from what I can tell. But thankfully, it's dissipating pretty quickly. It's windy out here. The good part about it being windy is that the smoke is dissipating. The bad part is it's blowing in towards Buckhead, north of Buckhead, and towards people, and honestly towards people's faces right now.
All right, Fox 5's Jacqueline Schultz there live on the scene. Jacqueline, continue to gather information for us. Russ and Sinai have some terrific news that no firefighters were injured when this portion of I-85 collapsed. So that is a huge relief indeed.
Oh, it certainly is. That was the first thing that I thought of when we saw that collapse. The heat was so intense underneath. The hope was, of course, that they were off to the side, and so glad to hear that that was the case. For those of you just joining us, I-85 northbound near the Buford Spring connector at Piedmont has collapsed. It seems unbelievable even to say such a thing, but those of you who've traveled that portion of I-85 know that for miles there, it is essentially a bridge. And that part of the bridge is now gone, and on the southbound side, it certainly looks to be damaged, Sine.
A concern at this point is that there has been a tremendous amount of black smoke as a result of this fire. It's moved out in all directions. We just heard Jacqueline talking about how she was smelling the smoke, particularly when the wind shifted, and that it was an uncomfortable situation for her, even as far away from the scene as she actually is. You know, it's important at this point. There are a lot of apartment buildings in the area for people to keep their windows closed and try not to let this smoky air into their homes or their environments. This is a situation where, particularly for those who have lung problems or heart problems, breathing this black smoke over an extended period of time can be problematic, those with asthma. So we just want to encourage everyone to take precautions. Of course, this is a bizarre event that's unfolding in front of all of us, and we want to get a closer look and see what's going on. But make your health and your safety the priority in this situation and try to avoid contact with this smoke. Yeah, a bizarre, unprecedented event. Now, what we're looking at now, just to be clear, this is a tape from earlier to show you the conflagration that began around 6:30, about 50 minutes ago. This is how intense it was. Again, now we know. We didn't know at the time. Initially, we thought it was a car fire, and perhaps it may have started that way and then spread into this plastic conduit, which acted really like a bomb. Plastic is, again, made out of petroleum, so it was essentially like gas fueling the fire. This is back to the live picture, and the process of turning the cars around has begun. That's really, we're sorry for the inconvenience to the people who got stuck in this traffic. That's really the least of everyone's worries at the moment. But there you see in our Fox 5 traffic camera, people turning around at 17th Street. These will be people from the northbound lane turning around back toward the downtown connector where it merges with I-75. So eventually those folks are going to get home.
They're going to have a story to tell, and they're going to be people who are going to be sitting in traffic in Metro Atlanta for weeks to come, it would seem, as we get used to making our way around this hole in I-85, using the perimeter and I-20 to get to our destinations, because this is going to be really something we've never seen before.
Yeah, it's pretty epic. Taking a look at the pictures now from Skyfox 5, this is an encouraging visual. You can see here where we're seeing more white smoke as opposed to the black smoke.
Right.
That's an indicator that perhaps this fire is more so contained. It seems to me that the chunk of freeway that fell down in the Midtown area was able to smother out some of the flames beneath it. And firefighters, of course, have been spraying water in the area. So it appears, here's a picture from earlier for a point of comparison.
Right.
You could see all that black smoke. That's when the fire itself was raging. It appears now that the fire is being extinguished, that firefighters are making some progress in that effort, and that the white smoke is a sign that perhaps we're getting closer to the end of the flames. Progress.
Okay, let's take a look at really our first good pictures underneath the bridge. You can see what looks like a relatively small column of flame, given how large this grew into, and it looks to, there's cylinders in the foreground. Could they be the things that caught fire? It was hard to imagine what could have been fueling that kind of intense fire for that period of time. I mean, it was a half an hour, Sine, of non-stop blast under both sides and coming up through the middle between the north and southbound lanes for a half an hour before the interstate finally collapsed in that area.
Absolutely. And not only is this affecting the roadways, it's also affecting MARTA at this point. So really traveling through the Atlanta area, particularly if you need to get through Midtown or Buckhead, it's all problematic right now. Right now, firefighters' primary effort is on getting the fire extinguished. It looks like that process is underway and that they're progressing there. Secondly, they're trying to get these cars turned around. But I-85, this major artery through our area, is gone for now. A portion of it has completely collapsed.
And it was so close, is so close to the MARTA train yard. It didn't look like any of the trains there were compromised in any way, even though they were relatively close to the fire itself. But there is a MARTA track that goes through there that comes down from the perimeter area, the perimeter mall area, down 400, along I-85. So really just to the top and to the right of your screen as we're looking at it there, and then makes its way down across at 17th Street there near 75 and then down through downtown. That's one of the MARTA lines that goes north and south. Obviously, that's not going right now because the black smoke and the fire threatened all of that. So we don't know at this point when MARTA might get back. It doesn't look like the fire got close enough to the MARTA tracks to damage them, but it certainly wouldn't be safe to resume MARTA at this point.
Most certainly. Well, this is, we're continuing to take a look at some of the video from earlier today, right as 85 was collapsing during the evening rush hour. Unbelievable situation, unbelievable images. Again, we just want to reiterate, this is an area you need to avoid at this point. If you live in the Midtown or Buckhead areas, you need to take some precautions with all of the smoke that's filling the air right now. And just know that some of the smoke, especially when you're breathing it in the quantities that have been released today, can be quite toxic. So please try to stay inside and keep your windows closed.
Yeah, we wish we had more information to share with you about the cause of this fire. We're not bothering fire investigators at this point because they've got their hands full making sure the rest of this goes out. This is not a live picture. These flames are from earlier. That smoke is from earlier, but it gives you a sense of what led to the catastrophe that we're witnessing. Again, the northbound lanes of I-85, which is essentially a bridge in that area near the Buford Spring Connector and Piedmont Road going over Piedmont Road. It's gone. You can see that section essentially melted after a full half an hour of thousands of degrees of heat on the steel beams that were supporting that northbound lane. The southbound lane got plenty of heat as well. So engineers will certainly be looking to see whether those lanes were compromised, whether the steel beams underneath those lanes were melted in any way. So we may be looking at a large construction project in both directions.
Yeah, well, thank God all of the firefighters who have been fighting this fire are confirmed to be okay at this point. They were not underneath the roadway when it collapsed, which is excellent news. We're monitoring Twitter right now and getting some images in. It appears there were some big spools of flexible PVC underneath the freeway, and at this point, some are pointing to that as possibly the accelerant. We do know that it was plastic conduit that kept the flames going for quite some time, but some images now coming in of the spools themselves, and they were just stacked up on top of each other, so there was a lot of material there to continue to feed the fire.
Yeah, all of that makes perfect sense in retrospect. We didn't know what we were looking at the time, but Skyfox 5 was over the scene, zooming into this area that we're looking at now. This is a video that's come into our newsroom from under the bridge. And this honestly looks like it was probably very close to the beginning of this fire. I mean, you look at this now, it doesn't look like the sort of thing that would threaten the integrity of the entire bridge. But it grew and grew and grew, and as Skyfox 5 zoomed in underneath the bridge, you could see the skeletons of those spools that had been holding all that fuel, essentially, that kept this fire so hot for so long, almost a half an hour, again, before it was enough to melt those beams, and then it's got to be 4 or 5 lanes there came crashing down.
Well, we want to send things back to Tom Haynes, who's in the Fox 5 newsroom and continuing to gather some new information for us. Tom?
Well, guys, just looking at these remarkable pictures with you and processing the fact that we lost a section of I-85, the interstate, the major artery that brings traffic north and south from the suburbs into downtown and from folks traveling north and south through our city. I'm on the phone now with Sergeant CORTEZ Stafford of the Atlanta Fire Department. Sir, just tell us what you know and where we're at in terms of the firefight. Obviously, we saw that the freeway has collapsed. What more can you tell us?
Right now, we're still trying to get a handle on the fire. It's been contained. We're trying to stop it right now from spreading to an adjacent, looks like a Goodwill store. It was going through the woods right now. Fortunately, we got on scene and saw that we had heavy fire that was possibly compromising the bridge, as you saw. And fortunately, we were able to stop all traffic on the Beaufort Highway connector north and southbound, and also 85 north and southbound. I really do believe. Go ahead.
We've been so concerned, Sergeant Stafford, about the wellness of your firefighters. Can you just confirm after the collapse of 85 that everybody's okay?
Yeah, I can confirm that all our firefighters are accounted for. And when we saw this getting out of hand, fire can compromise concrete at a very high rate. It's what we call spalling, and that's exactly what happened here right now. The heat caused the concrete to compromise and expand, and sure enough, the bridge fell down. So that's where we're at right now. We saw that about to happen, and we pulled our guys back.
Tell us, Sergeant Stafford, what was fueling this fire? It looked so intense.
That's still unknown right now. We're still trying to figure out what exactly was burning. We're still trying to figure out what exactly was burning. So that's where we are right now.
Just put it in perspective for us, Sergeant Stafford. Have you ever seen anything like this before?
No, this is the first for me, especially with the major interstate being affected right now. But we're glad that we got everybody out of the way before this bridge collapsed. Our incident commanders made a good decision just to pull back and fight it back from a distance. Once we saw that there was nobody in immediate danger and got the traffic stopped, so that was a good call on their part to pull our guys back because this bridge did collapse right where some of our guys were operating.
Now, we understand that some plastics and PVC piping might be involved in the fire here. Talk to us, if you will, if you know anything about the toxicity of the smoke that's coming out and really the respiratory safety of folks around this fire.
Yeah, well, most of it is going up. Some of the wind is pushing it. Looks like northwestern, So it's not hanging low as it was in the beginning, but that's where we are right now. If you don't have any other questions, I got to run.
All right, Sergeant CORTEZ Stafford, we know how busy you are with the Atlanta Fire Rescue Department. So, Sine and Russ, there you have it. While most of the firefight is seemingly under control, if I can say that, when you consider that the interstate has collapsed, the great news from Sergeant Stafford is that all his firemen are okay, firemen and women are okay, and that they've gotten a large part of this fire under control. We did have concerns about the toxicity of the smoke emanating, and boy, there was a lot of it, and folks who might live or be near this area, and then, not to mention the folks that are stuck on the highway. I do have another bit of information for you about the traffic rerouting, and we took a look at the pictures from the Department of Transportation cameras earlier of traffic being turned around and being rerouted. We know that the traffic that was traveling northbound out of downtown Atlanta and toward this section of I-85 have been turned around and rerouted onto I-75 to keep away from this area. Now we know the exits to the north of where the fire broke out and to the north of where I-85 collapsed are sort of the Lenox Road, Claremont Road, North Druid Hills Road areas, and we're assuming that the State Patrol will be using those exits to turn folks around who are coming from the northbound side of I-85 to get them off the freeway. So not only are we talking about the firefight here, but then what kind of impact this is going to have on as police work to get people away from this scene on all of the secondary roads, and especially around that Cheshire Bridge Road area in the North Druid Hills Road area. We know that's a very, very heavily populated area, and sort of the ripple effect of how the traffic might impact areas like that.
All right, Tom. Well, we've learned that 400 at this point, 400 southbound is closed at Lenox, yet another area to avoid at this point. At this point, the last we heard is that this was a 2-alarm fire, and my understanding is that firefighters or emergency personnel, even from Hartsfield-Jackson, have arrived there on the scene and are trying to lend a hand to these Atlanta firefighters to make sure that this situation is under control. Now,
this is the fire before the collapse about a half an hour ago. This is how intense that fire was. And it burned this way under the northbound lanes for about a half an hour. If you look just above the graphic there, you can see a little hint of the structure that I've been talking about, those spools that held some of that plastic, we think, and that acted as fuel for this fire for such a long time. But let's be clear, it's the northbound lanes that collapsed. The southbound lanes may very well be compromised because the fire clearly, as you can see from that picture from earlier, was under both sides, smoke coming out from under both sides, intense heat under both the north and southbound lanes, but only the northbound lanes collapsed, at least so far. We can confirm, DeKalb Fire's Eric Jackson confirms what Tom just heard from an Atlanta firefighter, and that is that no firefighters were injured in the course of all of this. They recognized the danger in the face of these intense flames, and they were putting water as much as they could, but it really wasn't having an effect, Sine. It seems like it had to burn itself out, really. Absolutely.
And the other good news is firefighters believe they were able to get the commuters back far enough to keep them out of the way of that bridge collapse there. So really best case scenario in terms of avoiding injuries or fatalities in a situation as severe as this one is. This video you're looking at right now, I want to point out, is from earlier. At this point, the fire is much more contained. At this point, we're not seeing all the black smoke and the yellow flames, the orange flames. At this point, it's pretty much been contained down to some light gray smoke. So significant improvement made in trying to extinguish the flames, although you've got to imagine for this fire to have been able to cause a bridge, a highway to collapse. So it was extremely hot. So hot spots are going to be an issue for an ongoing period of time. There is no way that firefighters will be able to really approach this scene and get up on it for quite some time.
All right, we've just heard from Marta and the control room. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe you just told me that Marta confirms that there are no service interruptions. Is that right? Okay, good. That's excellent news. No service interruptions for Marta. This fire happening now we're back to live pictures and firefighters, well, very recent pictures, firefighters underneath trying to put out the hot spots there. Again, as you pointed out, Sine, the very good news is we're looking at white smoke now. That is an indication of the progress that they have made as compared to the billowing black smoke of before. But to the left of the picture, as we're looking at it right now, is the Marta train yard. And Marta comes through that area, but not close enough to the fire to have been compromised. So train service continues, and there are going to be a lot of people getting acquainted with Marta over the next couple of months as we make our way patiently as a community watching the reconstruction of this major interstate. I've been trying to find on Google some indication of how many hundreds of thousands of cars use this on a daily basis. It's got to be 300,000 or 400,000, I would think. I was doing some research recently about the new SunTrust Park up in Cobb, and at the rush hour up there are 171,000 cars that come through the Cobb Cloverleaf on an average rush hour. This is certainly as busy as that. In the morning, people certainly know as they're coming down 400 to merge with I-85, this is often a parking lot on the southbound side, and certainly the southbound lanes are not going to be open anytime soon either, it would seem.
Yeah, well, very sadly, if you think that Atlanta has a traffic problem, we're really going to see some of the challenges that lie ahead for us with the loss of this major thoroughfare through our city. It's going to be quite a challenge in the weeks ahead getting to our destinations, particularly going from the downtown connector area up to Georgia 400. So something to think about is how will you get to work or to school or to your destination tomorrow, because you can count on this being closed for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, and as you pointed out, what we're looking at, for some perspective, what we're looking at is a physical catastrophe, an infrastructure catastrophe. But it is not a human catastrophe. No loss of life in the course of all this that we know of in this fire. And that, of course, is the most important thing. What's left is an engineering problem and a patience problem for all of us. And certainly there are going to be lots and lots of inconveniences as we learn to live without this vital stretch of roadway. It's hard even to imagine, because using side streets, that's not an option. For as many cars as come down that interstate, to get off at North Druid Hills and go around that, I'm afraid not. That's simply not going to be the answer. We have the alternates. We read them before. They seem to suggest that, at least for now and for the foreseeable future, we're all going to have to get used to using the perimeter together, as if I-285 isn't busy enough.
Yeah. Certainly. But as you say, we can get past this. We can get past the structural issues. Thank goodness everyone is okay. And we certainly have to applaud the Atlanta Fire Department for their leadership in making sure that the area was clear, that their firefighters weren't there underneath the bridge trying to extinguish these flames as the bridge collapsed. So best case scenario, all things considered.
Absolutely.
Let's head out to Tom Haynes. He's back in our newsroom right now fielding some new information.
Boy, you said it, Sine and Russ. According to Sergeant CORTEZ Stafford with the Atlanta Fire Department, who we spoke to earlier, the terrific and thankfully the great news in all this is that none of the firefighters were injured in this spectacular firefight in which part of the northbound side of the interstate completely collapsed as they were trying to put out these intense flames. We have Fox 5's Jacqueline Schultz, who's near the scene of where this fire has been burning. Jacqueline, we know you were consumed by smoke at one point, choking it back. What more can you tell us about the efforts to finally get this thing extinguished once and for all?
You know, when I learned that the bridge collapsed a few minutes before I learned that, I heard what sounded like some rumblings. It sounded like some explosions. That's what I thought it was. I thought perhaps these are transformers. But then people told me it was the bridge collapsing. I might have caught it on camera, but you just heard some rumbling, just some low rumbling. And that's just completely frightening that we were so close to this. I'm about 2 blocks out from where firefighters are at the base of the bridge. Right now I can say they still have a large stretch of Piedmont blocked off northbound of 85. I want to say about 6 blocks. Traffic, I can't even imagine, is a nightmare right now, even getting down here as the flames were going. People were trying to circle around to go back northbound on Piedmont. People could not get around. And right now, as the wind is kind of blowing the smoke away, you see firefighters standing around their trucks right now. You see them trying to survey the damage. I'm not sure at this point. I haven't been able to talk to fire officials what the game plan is from here on out. I can see some plumes of smoke keep on coming out from where the bridge collapsed, but I can't tell if there's any more flames at this point. I don't believe there are, but obviously they need to make sure that all the embers are put out and make sure everyone is safe in this scenario. I can say that a lot of people are standing around here. They are trying to figure out what exactly to do right now, and they're just watching it all go down. A lot of people are crowding around on Piedmont Road. They're trying to film what they can. They're trying to take it all in, and people have just been telling me this is our neighborhood route. This is how we go to and from home, and we can't go home anymore because our road is gone. And that's really settling in with people right now, the fact that this part of 85, Tom, is gone.
Well, and that'll be the case, Jacqueline, for the tens of thousands of people who no doubt use this section of the interstate to get in and out of town. I want to go back real quick to something you said earlier about, and we're looking at live pictures right now from Skyfox 5 of now what is the aftermath of the fire that has been burning since about 6:30 this evening, and that collapsed portion of I-85. You'll pardon the pictures as they encounter some interference from Skyfox 5, but we want to stay on them. It looks like, for the most part, all of the flames are out. We don't know about some of the embers that might be still burning underneath the freeway, but I want to go back real quick to something you were saying about Piedmont Road. So as Piedmont Road intersects the intersection of I-85, is that sort of close to where we're talking about, or did this sort of happen elsewhere, sort of closer to the MARTA yard? Give us an idea of where exactly underneath the interstate this happened.
From where I can't tell from this vantage point. I'm told it happened a little east of, anyone who knows Piedmont Road, you know that there's a Goodwill, and you know that there's a tower right after, as you go under the bridge of 85 on Piedmont. It's a little east of that. That's where this all happened, very, very, very close to the stretch of the bridge on Piedmont Road.
And Jacqueline, give us a sense. You say that you were, and we understand, by the way, that fire departments from around the city, including Atlanta, Hartsfield, Jackson, have been called in for backup to help extinguish these flames. But the sort of fire activity and the urgency that you were seeing earlier to attack these flames, have you seen, has that sort of sustained itself, or are you seeing more of a sense of relief and just, a thought into exactly the magnitude of what happened here?
Well, I'll tell you, as I saw the giant cloud of smoke covering Buckhead as I was coming down here, there were a number of fire trucks trying to get down here through the traffic that is immensely backed up. They were having trouble getting through and weaving down, but they finally got here. People were letting the fire trucks through. I kept on seeing fire truck after fire truck zoom on by. And then as crews were tackling everything on the ground and people were being yelled at to back up and back up and back up further, I think at this point a lot of people here are unsure about what still is going on. Some people are looking at their cell phones and getting the news updates from our app and watching online right now. And that's how they found out that the bridge collapsed. This is happening. I'm seeing the aerial view, so that is absolutely
I want
our viewers who are here on the ground.
I want to interrupt you, Jacqueline, real quick, but ask you to hang with us for a second. And Russ, I'd like to bring you back in here. We understand that I heard you mention earlier that they're bringing in reinforcements from Hartsfield-Jackson. Could those be the fire trucks that sort of spray foam onto the runway when we have a belly landing at Hartsfield-Jackson there?
That's a good guess. I don't know. Do you know, Sine? I mean, that's foam, and clearly it's having an effect on what's left of that fire, and it would stand to reason that that's the case, that perhaps this foam has come from the airport.
Yeah, and those sort of flatter.
It says Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International
Okay,
Airport
there we go.
The
Well,
there you go.
Then we have confirmation of that.
Yeah.
Jacqueline, one more question before I let you go, and it's one thing for us to be watching this on air here, and the spectacular nature of the collapse of the freeway, and now the thought of having Hartsfield-Jackson International fire trucks spraying foam onto the freeway here and close to Midtown Atlanta. The reaction of folks sort of right around where this is all taking place and what they're thinking of what's going on right in front of them.
Well, I'll tell you, because it's been so cloudy and so full of smoke out here, I think a lot of us were just trying to figure out what on earth is going on. And now it looks like the wind, I don't know whether something's going on in the ground at this point or the wind's picking up, but I can't see the bridge anymore. I can't see 85 from this vantage point. There's just more smoke being stirred up here of sorts. I see pretty much everyone out here is on their cell phone. They're either checking for updates, they're taking pictures. People have pulled over to the side of the road trying to see what is going on.
Yeah.
Now, I can tell you that people even said that they stopped driving because it's just so hard to get around up here. And I even had to park and walk a few blocks to get here to this point of where they're fighting the fire.
All right. Fox 5 Jacqueline Schultz there live on the scene. Russ and Sine, I'm going to send it back to you as, again, we take a look at what is really an unbelievable image here with the foam trucks from the world's busiest airport there on the interstate.
And it shows just how effective that foam is in putting out the last embers. We're waiting to hear from the governor. This is a state catastrophe. There's no question about it. And as we come to terms with what's happened here just 45 minutes ago, the loss of I-85 northbound in one of the busiest parts of our city, thoughts move a few miles north up to Spaghetti Junction. As cars come down in a southbound direction towards Spaghetti Junction, it's going to be a real logistical issue in the short term, letting people know that if they want to go through town, of course there are message boards. I have to believe those message boards are now telling people if you want to go into Atlanta, you cannot go south on I-85. You simply won't get there. Or you're going to have to go down to Claremont Road, North Druid Hills, and go around. You can only imagine what the side streets must be at this moment. So our state planners are already hard at work, I'm sure, trying to dream up how we get around this mess for weeks and months to come.
Well, you can only imagine that public transportation is going to be a point of emphasis in whatever strategy they come up with. You know, it's really been incredible to see these crews at work this evening. What tremendous progress has taken place over the last nearly 2 hours now. There's barely any smoke at this point when you compare it to the images that we saw just an hour and a half ago. Kudos to the Atlanta Fire Department. Kudos to the Hartsfield-Jackson crews that came in. I understand the governor's speaking now. Let's take a listen.
I want to thank you for your hard work. I want to thank you for your cooperation with me and with my staff. And just to simply say, this has been, by most measures, a great session. You set a record. This is the first time I am told that a budget has been finalized on the 37th day of a 40-day session. So congratulations to you for doing that. I'm sure
such a strange day. I mean, this is the last full day of the legislative sessions. The law a little steps down from the microphone and huddles with state leaders about how we're going to cope